Welcome to season 2 of On the Spot. At On the Spot, we discuss the issues.
It's another Monday. Welcome to the special episode where I join my guest in celebrating 3 years. Now, before I get started, as always, thanks to our partner, the National Revenue Authority, NRA, and our sponsor, the Anti-Corruption Commission, the ACC. I am your host, Stella Bangura. Now, on the 18th of June 2018, a new Anti-Corruption Commissioner was appointed by His Excellency Julius Madubio, more so when His Excellency promised 3 wars: war on lawlessness, indiscipline, and corruption. Now, this June marked the 3 years in office of the Commissioner, in which Sierra Leone has made gains on a number of corruption indices, made progressive policy reforms on corruption, secured high conviction rates, amongst other successes. So what has it really been like under the leadership of the Commissioner of the ACC? Well, Emmanuel Kovaya Amara Esquire and Patrick Sandy will be briefly telling us a little bit more on the show. Emmanuel Kovaya Amara Esquire is the coordinator of operations at the Anti-Corruption Commission, who has been with the institution for a little over 2 decades. And he joins me on the show briefly to share with us what it's been like 3 years under the Commissioner. Welcome to the show, Amara. How are you?
I am good, thank you very much, Stella. I'm glad to be here.
Good to have you. 2 decades, a little over 2 decades.
A little under 2
A
decades.
little under 2 decades at the ACC. 3 years on, under the leadership of Francis Ben Kaifala. What has it really been like?
Stella, in not so many words, I must tell you that having been at the Commission since 2005, I have never seen corruption being fought in Sierra Leone as it has been fought in the last 3 years. I have had the opportunity of working with every commissioner since the establishment of the Commission in 2000, from Val Collier to Professor Joko Smart, to Abdul Tijan Cole, to Joseph Fitzgerald Kamara, to Adi Macaulay, and now Francis Ben Kaifala. Not to say they've not been doing anything, but that which has been done in 3 years under the leadership of Francis Ben Kaifala is unimaginable. You know, now when the Commissioner went to the Commission, the first day he had his maiden meeting with the staff of the Commission, he did tell the Commission that he was not there to shadow box. Well, I understood it, but then I believe many of our staff did not even understand. When he started rolling out his leadership and rolling out, his mantra of success, it dawned on every staff in the Commission, from the cleaner to the security, to the dispatch, to the investigator, to the prevention officer, to the public education officer, to the finance officer, to every staff, that it was time for business. Of course, you must have been following, both nationally and internationally. Today, in 3 years, more people in Sierra Leone know about the existence of the Anti-Corruption Commission and the fight against corruption than ever before. More people in the world and Sierra Leone together appreciate the fight against corruption in Sierra Leone more than ever before. The indices speak for themselves. We've moved on, and we are still moving on. Corruption. In this fight, as was said by the Commissioner, there is no shadow boxing.
No shadow boxing.
At all.
Wonderful. And I presume this has just made your work more enjoyable.
More challenging, but more enjoyable. When you do what you love, when you do what you enjoy doing, in spite of the challenges, you frankly would go to bed, not even dreaming dreams, but just imagining how your next day will be, how your next set of assignments will be accomplished. And many a time that is exactly what happens. You work till somewhere around 10, 11 in the night, from somewhere around 7:30, and you're still not complaining. You're still moving on. Maybe you go to your house Sunday. My wife will tell me, look, now you've created a library so that you don't come close. But Mama, thank God she has understood. I'm either in the library or doing some other thing. Maybe deep into the night, like 1, 2, 3 o'clock, to the extent that I'm not particularly used to sleeping much anymore, but I enjoy it. I enjoy it because the work that I put in, the effort that I put in, I know it's for posterity, and it is yielding results under the leadership of the Commissioner.
Amazing. Well, thank you very much, Amara Kovaya. I like that name, Kovaya, by the way. I think it's
Kaifala.
Kaifala. I think that sounds even a lot more nicer.
Thank you.
Well, we still have Patrick Sandy, who's going to join us very soon. So continue to watch. This is On the Spot.
Domestic revenue mobilization is a key instrument for the government of Sierra Leone in reducing poverty, increasing financial independence, achieving middle income status, and charting the path for new directions. From supporting the free quality education, good roads, healthcare, electricity, and more.
Domestic revenue mobilization is very critical when it comes to national development.
Through the Asikoda World, we have developed beautiful management tools. We have also developed systems in which it will bring transparency and help to the importer, to the broker.
iTax is a platform for all your domestic taxes. The electronic cash register system is the game changer.
Let's support government by paying our taxes. For more information, visit the nearest NRA office or log on to our website www.nra.gov.sl.
Now, since 2018, the ACC has embarked on a massive public education and outreach activity. So the Director of Public Education and Outreach Department, is going to be director, of course, will be joining me here shortly. Now, corruption in Sierra Leone is seen as systemic, endemic, and even now a culture. So much so that in many instances, acts of corruption occur with individuals involved oblivious to it because it has become a norm. Therefore, there is a constant need to raise awareness on what is truly corruption and how our daily actions continue to promote corruption. The department tasked with this is the Public Education and Outreach Department, which is headed by Patrick Sandy, and he is here to talk a little bit briefly on the work and 3 years under the leadership of the Commissioner. Welcome to the show, Patrick.
I'm pleased to be here with you, Stella,
Yes.
and my greetings to the viewers.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Now, you've got the task of raising awareness, putting the message of corruption right in the minds of people. You've been in the ACC for almost 2 decades.
Yeah.
How has it been so far, especially with the public awareness mandate that your department have, especially under this 3 years of Francis?
Yes, I will describe the 3 years under Commissioner Kaifala as having been quite very, very inspiring and also innovative, because as the Director of Public Education, as you have indicated, my role is actually to work on the mindsets. My role is to work on the perception of the public, and that is very useful in the fight because you are letting them understand what the dangers of corruption are, and then also to solicit their support. So in fact, when Commissioner came in, he gave me the task that, Sandy, you are free to come up with strategies. And you realize that what we have done in the recent past, in the 3 years, in regard our interventions by way of public engagement, has quite been the non-textbook model. What I mean by that, we have been using diverse methods, the unconventional methods, if you like, to reach out to the public. And the reason why you have seen us going across the country, which has never happened before in the history of the ACC, where the Commissioner himself leads the team of public education to go out there to the public and not only to communicate anti-corruption messages, our views and the work we do, but rather also seeking feedback. That is quite unprecedented. And then also you look at the public lectures that he has embarked on, because the people, especially the young people, we believe that are very, very useful or very, very important to the fight against corruption. So we made sure that institutions across the board, tertiary institutions or post-secondary institutions, they have invited the commissioner, and we've been there, gone across the country. Recently, we were at the Canadian College of Modern Technology in Mainline 21, and you see how the public lecture resonates with the people. So that also has been quite very useful. And we also look at our public relations, which also came in quite robustly when he took over the reins of administration. We, in the past, only had a public relations officer in the office of the directorate, but now you have a unit where you have staff within the unit. The head of unit is there. You have a public relations assistant. You have assistant public relations officer, and now we are leading in like communicating our message to the public, the narrative in terms of the fight against corruption. So those are all the kinds of things that we've put into the fight that I want to believe is bringing out the results today, because as you've said, what is also very critical to the fight against corruption is public engagement. Your level of public engagement and how do you engage them, the methods you employ, the strategies you employ, and the targets. The different targets you have in mind, and the methods or the outputs and the tools you use, radio, television, social media, jingles, and all those kinds of outputs. And those things we have really been working on, and we see that, yes, we've done quite a lot. Though we still need to do more, because in terms of public education, it has to be sustained. It has to be intensified. And you also have to make sure that you communicate well. As you know very well, communication means when you get feedback, and the feedback speaks to exactly what you wanted the person to understands. I think that's what we have been doing over the period, and has been paying off a lot. And all is as a result of the leadership, because I'm given the free will, and I'm provided also the resources in spite of the limitedness of what we get from the government of Sierra Leone. But yes, the commissioner in his good will has really been able to support my department. And I tell you, quite a lot of resources been put into my department, because he also believes that public education has a lot to do. Important. Even when you talk about fight against corruption, a lot has to do with perception. And how do you work on perception? It's about the people knowing exactly the work that you are doing. So if people go out to ask questions, surveys are conducted, and then they would have to say, yes, we've heard about the ACC, and the ACC is doing a very good job. So you have to communicate the gains. You have to communicate them on a regular basis, on a sustained basis, that indeed that's what you're doing. And again, you solicit their support, because they have to support you in this fight.
Wonderful. Clearly, it seems like 3 years of hard work is paying off under the leadership of Francis Ben Kaifala. Well, of course, he joins me right now, and he's going to be sharing with us what 3 years has been like for him. This is On the Spot. Continue to stay here. We'll be right back. Francis Ben Kaifala, popularly known as the People's Commissioner, is a lawyer who has, at some point in time, been a public relations officer and spokesperson of the Sierra Leone Bar Association, and as well former human rights scholar at the Bernard and Audrey Rappaport Center for Human Rights and Justice in Austin, Texas. Now he is the president of the Network of Anti-Corruption Institutions in West Africa, and a board member of the African Union Advisory Board on Corruption. Francis is the commissioner of the Anti-Corruption Commission, and he joins me to talk about his 3 years in office. Welcome to the show, Francis.
Thank you. Absolute pleasure to be here.
3 years. Has 3 years flown by so fast?
Very fast, considering everything we have done and achieved in these 3 years, yes.
So what has been the experience like for you?
Very interesting, sometimes topsy-turvy, but it was always expected to be that way. But I've absolutely loved being the People's Commissioner. Absolutely.
Wonderful. So here talking about 3 years as a commissioner for the ACC. And 3 years on, there's been quite a lot of milestones that the commission under your leadership has been able to achieve, breaking new indices, but locally and internationally, having you do a couple of media rounds, you've just sort of overemphasized the progress Sierra Leone has made so far. Can you take us through on what 3 years has been like for you?
3 years has been interesting. I met a team at the ACC, very competent, very determined and committed to the fight against corruption. But the moment I got there, it was apparent that what was needed was leadership. Needed a leadership that had a mission and a vision that could inspire them to support the work and to be able to achieve the purpose for which the ACC was established after the war in 2000. Therefore, the first thing was rallying them behind me, and the ACC is one institution that we made very little change. The same people that was there, the same leadership, directors, managers, everybody left where they are. So I did a little bit of reshuffling to get them to places where they could bring out their best for the institution. And then we set out to do what we can. In a short time, it was very easy. The convictions started coming in. More investigations started happening. Our public education sector was energized and it started working on the minds of the people, putting out the right information to rally them to support us. We started doing what we call non-conviction based asset recovery in addition to prosecution, and the results started coming in. We expanded the prevention work of the commission, and there were more systems and processes reviewed so that we can, of course, produce on the mantra that prevention is better than cure. And before you could look at it, all the indexes started reacting exactly as we had predicted and promised. Sierra Leone started trailblazing in those indexes. It took less than 2 years for us to occupy a position of respectability in Africa for the fight against corruption, and other countries started coming to learn from us what we are doing to take it back. So it was really, it's been quite an interesting experience. There were challenges, but trust me, the results we have produced in these 3 years, when you look at them, you know that things can happen.
For a number of people that would say that those progress and advancement was largely, expected because the new government came into power. You had the predecessors, having to account for, their stewardship. So it was just only natural that some gains and progress would be made in those areas. Would you agree with that?
I disagree. I mean, whatsoever you do with predecessors, the old regime cannot last beyond 1 year. They cannot account for the progress we are making in the fight against corruption in 2020 and 2021. Maybe 2018, you could say some part of 2019, but the moment it goes beyond 1 year, it's more about what you can. And if you look at the data and statistics, what we have done about the current regime, for example, we have established 94 integrity management committees in MDAs. We have done 46 systems and processes reviews in ministries, departments, and agencies. We have had 47 convictions out of 51 charge cases to court with very little appeal. We've had cases where people are pleading. So if you look at the data, considering what we are doing with the past and present regime, you will find out that really what we did about the past regime was just to set the tone to bring us to where we are. But what we have done in the past 2 years purely focuses on the current regime. And recently I called the political parties together because this is what they have been saying. They have been misinforming the public that, oh no, the ACC is about the past. And I told them the ACC would be getting 81% in the MCC control of corruption scorecard by going after the past when the past was at 49%. How is that possible? When they come to measure, are they going to measure what was happening in 2017 or 16? Or they are measuring what is happening now? How did Afrobarometer say corruption has reduced from 70% in Sierra Leone to 40%? How did that happen? Is it about the past? So Stella really, clearly everybody could see very quickly that that assumption was wrong. The political parties, they were merely short of apologizing to us for their assumptions. But we understand.
In the instances where there is the perception that there are certain categories of people who needs investigations, who needs the anti-corruption, yourself and your team to probably hone in and just basically do a little bit more investigation on the current dispensations. And, people feel that they haven't seen enough of that. Would it still be safe to say that enough is not done under the current administration
But that is
or
not true.
dispensation?
I've said the data and statistics shows that a lot more is being done about the current administration. If we say we are going to name the cases that we have done in the current administration, this program will not finish. But I can just give you an example. When the directors and other people took money for the Commission of Inquiry in the Ministry of Information, those are not people in the past, those are people in the current. We tried them, we convicted them, they were given custodial sentences. They are in Pademba Road prison as I speak to you. Okay? When Serafinda Bendu we did non-conviction based asset recovery from her. In another case, we charged her to court. She was a director general in this regime. Recently, we charged Masakoi from the Sierra Leone Maritime Administration. He is a director general, the same position that I hold in the ACC. Is that the past? Those who charged from the EDSA, are they from the past? The investigations we've done in the presidency, the state chief of protocol, is that in the past? The investigations we've done about ministries, department of agencies, several permanent secretaries, ministers of government and their deputies, is that the past? If I say I am going to give you a list, it will not be finished. And that is why it was easy for us to demolish that claim. We simply have done a lot more about the president, and we continue to do more about the president. And where we are in the fight against corruption, the envious position that we occupy in Africa because of the progress we are making in our standing, international reputation that we are gaining, can never be about the past. The past had a lot of corruption issues. Our mandate requires that we look into past, present, and future corruption. Definitely, we were not going to ignore simply because it was the past. It is always good to hold the past strongly accountable, and then the present will learn from it, and those who do not learn from it, you make sure you take action. And that's exactly what we have done.
So how has this actions been able to speak to the culture of corruption in Sierra Leone? We, continually reference that the corruption in Sierra Leone is systemic and endemic, and it's a culture. So the actions being taken so far, how has that sort of addressed that culture in Sierra Leone?
To go very brutal to capture the attention of the population, because Sierra Leone is a country that has a deeply entrenched corruption culture that goes back probably from 1964 to date. So if you are going against that kind of corruption system, you have to be prepared to let the people know that you have the guts, the spirit, the heart, the tenacity to take the fight to the corrupt. And then they will back off. So what we have done is really to capture their attention. Now, I am sure you will agree with me that corruption has been made unfashionable. People have to look over their shoulder to even dare to be corrupt. And those who do, when we have caught them, we have dealt with them decisively. That has led to the reduction in corruption. But the political economy of corruption is such that it is 80% about people, about institutions, about systems and processes, about prevention, and only 20% about people. Running after people for corruption has been a mistake. It will remain a mistake. If we have to change the story of Sierra Leone, we have to invest in that 80%. Systems and processes. Systems. Everything is about systems. And if we, as a country, now pick up from where we are, the ACC has done very well. We have sent the right message. We have captured the attention of the people. Public servants know that corruption is now expensive. The press release alone will put out your pastors, your church mothers, and everybody will know how corrupt you are. I wonder how some people will even get from their beds to go to church the next day. Apart from the fact that we are also punishing them, we are arresting and detaining them brutally for days and weeks. But that cannot be the main center focus of the fight against corruption. It's about systems.
And how much
this is where we should now pick it up from.
How much of that have you done?
I have said we've done over 46 reviews. Systems and processes reviews. Identifying monopolies, concentration of monopolies, removing them. Because to reduce corruption really is to remove three things from the system. monopoly. Decision making should not be concentrated. You remove the opportunities for corruption. You also remove the incentives for corruption. So people cannot justify to themselves why they should be corrupt. You pay them well, you take care of them, they have access to loans and other sweeteners for work. And of course, that will make them to reduce their greed to want to acquire more because there are systems to provide for them. So we are working with the government to remove this. But I must say this again on the 3rd year of my anniversary. If Sierra Leone invests in systems, we really invest in systems, and we try to reduce these 3 things I have called monopoly, incentives, and opportunity, down the line, maybe we'll make ACC a transitional institution only, and we'll focus more on law enforcement, but the system will work for the people of Sierra Leone.
Right.
People will not touch cash, people will not have incentive to steal, people will not have opportunity to steal. Those who try, we take steps against them with the mantra, kill dog before dog, let dog know say die day.
All right.
We make sure that they don't come back again.
I'm going to hold you. I'm going to hold you there, Mr. Commissioner. This is, of course, On the Spot. We'll take a quick break and we'll be back. All right, welcome back. We are celebrating 3 years of the ACC Commissioner's, appointment as the anti-corruption or corruption crusader, or anti-corruption crusader, which
the
is
lead
it?
Anti-corruption crusader.
The lead anti-corruption.
There are many
crusader.
other crusaders.
So 3 years on, and having made a lot of progress. One very formidable progress is that of the MCC scorecard.
Yes.
That has, made us eligible for the compact.
Yes.
And obviously eligible for a large sum of money if we're able to maintain that progress.
Yes.
Where do you see this taking Sierra Leone? I ask this question because when you look around, Sierra Leone in general, and you see the impact of decades of actions of corruptions, and you see people, do not have access to water, light, and you see kids dying, because of preventable diseases and actions as well. Where do you see this taking Sierra Leone, and what really does this pass across to the people of Sierra Leone in terms of their actions as individuals when it comes to acts of corruption?
I think one thing we have done in these 3 years effectively is how well we have articulated issues of corruption for the public to understand. A recent survey that was done shows that 96% of Sierra Leoneans said they have heard about the fight against corruption and they know what corruption is, and they know that the Anti-Corruption Commission is the best institution to deal with it. That is a really significant thing that has happened because, corruption education is important, significant. Now, where we are building on, firstly, we have made corruption expensive. We've made it unfashionable. It is not the free-for-all that we used to have. We are not saying that we have demolished corruption out of Sierra Leone or we have destroyed corruption. Well, it's not a situation where before people felt like it was fashionable to be corrupt. It is no longer that case. That is also important. We just need consistency of action and, of course, continue to do our job fairly and make sure that we get the trust of the population to believe in what we are doing so they rally behind us. But that consistency has to last for at least 10 years. Because as you continue to do this, people start substituting to more legitimate and honest means of earning. Understanding that corruption is expensive, they don't want to do it. It's a simple demand and supply. Once it is expensive, fewer people want to get engaged into it. And of course, those who engage, if you get them, you deal with them decisively, other people will avoid. 10 years down the line, the culture would have waned, the culture will have reduced. Of course, that will launch Sierra Leone into an era of extreme prosperity.
How does the Commission manage people's expectations? And I ask this because many times the public have a perception on how matters that the ACC handle should be handled, which should be tried, which, they feel is, has been done correctly. How does the ACC manage people's expectations, and especially when such stance of the ACC is not as they would have loved to see it?
Strategic communication. How the message is packaged and communicated to the people is very important, and knowing your target population, what you wish to tell them. So, for example, Sierra Leone has a very toxic political environment, divided right in the middle, and depending on where people stand, that is how they view things. And I am the commissioner appointed by Julius Maada Bio. When they see me, they see Julius Maada Bio. But I have to communicate with them to understand that, yes, that was a power exercise by Julius Maada Bio, but I am my own man. And my team have sufficient independence to do what they have to do. If we do things that enforce that narrative, then we have sufficiently communicated well, and of course, people's expectations we start to do. So it's a question of really. So for example, when we said, oh, indexes will work better, I am a person who believes in results. I have always believed in results. I don't believe in talking with people. I don't even care about critics. I like critics to come. In fact, when they pile up, that is the time I act. Because I know that results is the best communication. They say that we cannot do well. They see that Sierra Leone is jumping 12 places in the Transparency International Index. Sierra Leone was failing at 49% when I became commissioner. First, we went to 79%. They said, oh, no, it's because it's running after the past administration. We were at 71%. 2019, we went to 79%. They said, well, no, it will not last. In 2020, we went to 81%. And then everybody said, well, maybe there's something happening here. That is what result does. Result destroys cynicism. Sierra Leone has a lot of chronic societal cynicism where people do not see the good in others, where people try to undermine others because they believe that life has a malignant outcome as a result of bad governance for years and years and years. It is only results that speak to them. That is why when you say results, for example, when I started, they say ACC does not win cases. 3 years down the line, we have only lost 2 cases. 3 cases. 3 years. The ACC has only lost 3 cases. So there was a time when I went to the radio and I asked them, you said ACC cannot win cases. Then you show me the cases that we are losing. Because I have 47 cases that we have won and I can easily call them to you. And then everybody went into their shells. And you have never had that narrative that ACC is losing cases.
But
that is what happens to Sierra Leone. You have to make sure you communicate with them. And communication is not just about words. Words are important, but also strategic action.
Is there still on the communication to the public? How well is it communicated to people, especially when a large percentage are not legally minded and do not understand, the legalities of prosecutions and legal matters? I'll give an example in the instance of Parliament, where there were some irregularities. I would use irregularities, but they were not charged to court, or actions were not taken against parliamentarians. Rather, your commission advised that a review of systems and processes would be the best option.
Yes, please.
But then in another instance, where same, actions and same situation.
I would say similar actions.
Or similar actions.
Because it can be similar but not the same.
But different actions were taken. How do you sort of, first of all, clarify such instances for the people, and how do you get across to people to understand what goes into certain judgments?
The issue could be procurement of this cup. One person did not have any system in place to determine how they procure this cup. Another person had all the systems in place to procure this cup, but decided not to go on with that system. So, similar facts, different scenarios. Okay? In this case, even though the person procured this cup, because there was no system that directs him what to do, we can look at it and say we think that this person does not have what we call mens rea in law, that which gives you criminal responsibility. And say if the system were there and he fails to follow the system, it would have been bingo for us to prosecute him. But because this system is not there, it's okay. You bought this cup, you did not follow processes. We are going to ignore this today, but we are going to work with you to put in place the system that you did not have. Okay? One scenario. The other one, the system is there. There's a director of procurement who knows what to do, and one guy just wakes up in the morning and decides to give contracts to other people and ignores that system. That person has the criminal responsibility. In these two scenarios, we will charge this man to court without any hesitation, and we stand by that decision. In this one, we will not charge to court because we needed to put in place a system. But if we now put the system in place, which brings this scenario to the same position as the other scenario, then we are. This is what we have been communicating to Sierra Leoneans. They are all similar situations, but they are not the same. Things can be similar, but not the same. And sometimes that's subtle distinction. So that is where your question is very relevant. How do we communicate this to the people? We have one of the most powerful PR systems in this country. Our PR is powerful. But of course, you understand how the country is. Things are filtered based on tribe, region, politics, and sometimes even gender. So you cannot be responsible when people hear things but they do not understand them, particularly when they have deployed what we call behavioral filters that make them, you say A, they hear B. And you say, I was just saying A, and they say yes, but I still heard B. You cannot be responsible for that. But we will continue to bring them along. Our PR system is always devising way. That is why we have recruited more communication consultants in the ACC now. We have a communication consultant that is focusing on young people and how to target their mind. We have another communication consultant that is targeting the older people.
We'll talk a little bit quickly on how the ACC is taking the public along, because the ACC cannot be everywhere at the same time. The ACC is understaffed, underfunded for such a very huge task. Very critical question here. How well is the public informed on the actual mandate of the ACC? In the instance where there are some cases, I'm sure people bring to the table of the ACC that it is not within its mandate.
Yes.
Right. So
Many,
exactly. So how well communicated are the mandates of the ACC to the public?
Trust me, we have programs in every radio station, every media, newspapers, targeted. Even I have gone right across the country, from Falaba to Mongo, from Bond to Kwenadugu, from Pujehu to Shebwema, from Daru to Kwendu. I have gone there, held town hall meetings with them, educating them about the mandate of the ACC, the work that we are doing, and trying to gather feedback from them so as to inform our work. And the same thing is done at the regional level. We have regional offices. In fact, now, one of the great things we have done in these 3 years is that we have deployed a regional coordinator in every district in Sierra Leone, which never existed before.
So what's the mandate of the ACC?
The mandate of the ACC is to investigate corruption, prevent corruption so as to reduce it, and of course to prosecute where necessary, and sometimes to punish.
Is there a threshold for investigation?
There is a prosecutorial threshold.
And what is that threshold?
The prosecutorial threshold is not quantitative or qualitative. It's a judgment that is done after the investigators provide a report, the prosecutors give an opinion, the commissioner takes a decision. And what amounts to a threshold is a combination. The threshold is determined by the combination of all these opinions that guide the commissioner to decide whether this is an appropriate case to prosecute or not to prosecute.
Right. Okay. We'll be back. Continue to stay with me, Commissioner. When we come back, we'll talk a little bit about carrying the people along with you and your team in the fight against corruption.
I'm all yours. And I'm enjoying this.
Wonderful. We'll be back. Continue to watch.
Good.
Hello?
Hello, Mr. Abu. I am calling for your rental tax payment.
Oh my goodness.
Hello? This is a call from the...
Your colleague is on the other line. Can you just please hold?
You are a landlord or property agent? You don't hear about rental income tax? As property owner or agent where they collect rent, the law say you for pay tax and are you tax identification number where they call team you they use for pay am.
Yes, me famble them. The law say without this tax identification number, you not go able to pay your tax. And if you not pay your tax, the law go bet you tranga one. Welcome, sir. Please sit.
Thank you.
We don't make them easy for you now. The law say, since you the collect rent we pass 7.2 million loans, you for come to NIA and pay your rental tax just after we you tenants don't pay you done.
So no more calls from everywhere, eh?
You go just get one SMS or one phone call. We go remind you, sir.
Thank you very much.
For no more, go to any NIA office near you or visit www.nia.gov.sl.
Remember, paying taxes is required by law.
Okay, welcome. If you're just tuning in, you have missed quite a lot. I have with me the Commissioner for the ACC, and we're talking about 3 years in office and what it's been like so far for yourself and, of course, for the people of Sierra Leone. So as we talk about the people of Sierra Leone, how have you been able to carry, you, meaning yourself and your team, been able to carry the people of Sierra Leone along with you in this fight against, corruption, just basically taking ownership of this fight?
I think the commission was rightly branded the People's Commission, and I was branded the People's Commissioner because of the people-centric approach that we developed from the onset of fighting corruption. So we developed various communication strategies, programs using both traditional and social media to put message out. And while the team is doing their bit, my Twitter handle, for example, is a very trusted, highly followed handle to put information out to the people and to make interaction with it very easy. The same thing on Facebook. Thousands of followers on each of them. The commission itself has its social media pages. We have newspapers that carry our news. We have radio programs, ACC Hour, on TV and on radio. But beyond that, we go around rural areas, Bond Island, Kamakwie, Daru, Segbema, Kwedu, the Warawara Hills, where myself, the commissioner, not another person, we go together, sit with them, commune with them, listen to them, pass on the information on the fight against corruption, gather feedback from them, and do a lot of dancing in the process. You should see me dancing to the Mendy song, to the Temne song, to the Fula song, to the Kisi song.
And how
and sometimes I even speak to them in the language that they understand.
The public being very supportive in the process of investigations, in the instance of either reporting acts of corruption or providing evidence in areas where necessary?
Yes, the public, again, we have a culture in Sierra Leone where people think that they should not take bread in somebody else's mouth. I think we have a guilt culture.
Is that hugely impacting the fight?
It is hugely impacting, particularly when it comes to whistleblowing. So we have to go after the information and get it. Or somehow somebody has to get angry or unhappy before information can come. And even that, we pray to God for them not to become happy in the process, because then you are calling them to come and they're no longer interested. They will put their phone off. That's the time they would have visited their grandma in some mountain in the provinces that you cannot reach. So we pray to God for more people to become unhappy with their bosses, with their friends, with people who they are not, or to go jealous, and then they are more supportive for our work. But we look forward to the day when people can understand that reporting corruption and cooperating with the ACC is not only about you being unhappy with somebody. It is a duty. It is a national duty. You are doing a pre-instructed duty when you support us to stamp out corruption in Sierra Leone. So we are struggling a bit with that, but also with what we are doing, including public engagements like the one we are having now, is to pass on that right message, strategic communication, and then we believe that little by little, it's all about the corruption culture I'm talking about. Beneficiaries of corruption on the secondary level are even more dangerous than those who benefit on the primary level. Because, for example, if a man steals, 1 billion loans and uses 200 million to put electricity in his village, woe betide you, you want to go and arrest him in that village. The entire village is coming for you. But they have to understand that they could have benefited 1 billion. So 200 million was just a drop. And that is the kind of message that we are putting across.
So
and that's the kind
there
of
has been high recovery rate, over 30 billion leons recovered. But is that the actual value of the cost of those corrupt activities, and possibly conviction in terms of, we see what happened recently in South Africa, where the former president of South Africa was sentenced. Do we think such actions can have a more can send home a stronger message as opposed to just telling people?
The former president of South Africa was sentenced for not going to cooperate with investigation.
Going to cooperate with investigation.
So it's different. He has not yet been sentenced for corruption. But the message is that, yes, people are taking action against their leaders and holding them accountable, irrespective of what position they've held.
Should that be the stance here as well?
It should be the stance. And that is why, for example, when the
go
ACC,
to jail.
Yes.
We
have always said that the judiciary should impose more custodial sentences. We continue to work with them to ensure that they are doing very well with the trial of our cases, the speed, the tenacity, the quality of the judgments have improved greatly. Where we now need to work on is the sentencing, and we are trying to develop a sentencing guideline for them. So that, of course, we can make sure that those who are found guilty of corruption, the punishment they get is commensurate to the offense they committed, but also to send the right message for the future. But more so beyond that, for us to understand that when people hold positions of trust, it is not about them. The ACC does not have to hate you to investigate you. It's a question of explaining what ought to be explained. If it's a bridge that was supposed to have been built and money was given for you to build, and the money is not lying in some account which you could easily hand over to the ACC, but the bridge has not been built, it is not about the tribe you speak or the language or what village you come from. Either the bridge is there or the money is in the account. Somehow, one of them has to be produced. And if it cannot be produced, you should be punished for it. If people understand these things and stop dancing cacat devil behind politicians, people who hold positions, and use it to try to defame or reduce the impact of the fight against corruption, we will have done a lot of good for Sierra Leone. And that is what we are trying to speak to them to understand. This is their interest. The fight against corruption is war. And that warfare is for their benefit.
So
they should stand with us.
Recoveries being, like I had asked earlier, has recoveries being sort of commensurate? I wouldn't use commensurate.
It doesn't have to be commensurate. Look,
in the instance,
for example,
hold on. In an instance where someone steals or allegedly misappropriates, but converts, say 1 billion, and you ask them to pay 2 million.
No, there is never a situation where somebody will steal 1 billion and we tell them to pay 2 million. You will pay either the full amount that was deemed to have been stolen or more. There has never been, and that is one of the misinformation that particularly is being put out there. Let them give us an example where somebody stole 1 million and we say come with 100 million. With 1 million, I will tell you to come with 100,000. You know, it is not. It is the fines and punishments that is the problem. But even that, when we did the Anti-Corruption Amendment Act 2019, we made sure we put in a provision that says when the court finds you guilty, in addition to the fine, whatsoever you stole, you have to bring it back in full. That has solved that problem. So we are absolutely fine. It's no longer a question of commensurate. It's a question of enforcing the laws and sending the right message.
3 years down the line, and you have 2 years more to go until maybe Mr. President decides, well, this guy's doing a really good job. We need to renew his mandate. What do you hope, would be, what you hope to achieve for the next 2 years?
I want to see a Sierra Leone where we become irrelevant. Not because we are not there, but because our good work reduces corruption to such a level that we don't have to be sending in the Scorpio squad everywhere. I want to see a Sierra Leone where we continue to trailblaze in the fight against corruption. In the next 2 years, I want us to be plus or minus 80 in the league of countries in the fight against corruption. I want us to rank among the elites of the fight against corruption in Africa. I want Sierra Leone to feel the impact of the fight against corruption. For the 49% that we were, and now we're at 81%, to trickle down to the pocket of the ordinary man. For them to feel it in their purse, in their cups, and in their spoons. For all of us to live a country where there is prosperity. That is what I hope to see. And how we achieve that, let's not forget. Corruption is 80% about systems and processes, and only 20% about people. Systems, systems, systems. It has to be a whole government approach to fighting corruption, and the government has to invest in systems. Digitization, automation, ensuring that we have completely automated audit systems. And of course, we reduce a cash-based economy and make it digital. If we do that, Stella, Sierra Leone will be a great place. And my role is to continue to advise on that, but also continue to hold those who fall out of line strongly accountable, whether they belong to the past, to the present,
or to the
future, as long as I am in it.
So as we talk about past, present, and future, this is a lot of work, clearly. Having to make sure that people are doing the right thing. How do you balance work and life and family and personal life? How do you balance both of them?
One of them clearly has to suffer in this case. And of course, the personal suffers a lot.
Yeah.
But when I took this job, I knew it was a sacrifice. I was a very young man when I was appointed to this job. I knew that I needed to send a message on behalf, firstly, of the young people of Sierra Leone, that we have to take the destiny of this country and move it forward. And I was in a vantage place to do so. So with the support and hard work of my team, we have sent a clear message. It's not easy. The little sacrifices we make for the good things to happen. So I have no problem staying at home because I can no longer go to the club, to dance with people, to have fun at the beach, to go to parties as I feel like. These days, to even eat, I have to be sure of where the food comes from. And you have to move around with bodyguards and all those kinds of things. It's not an easy thing for a young person.
Are you getting used to that lifestyle?
It's never an easy lifestyle to get used to when you're young. But I am coping with it.
And how has family managed? Because I know you've got your mother, and I'm sure every now and then, those who know that, that you're her son would obviously every once in a while go to me, Mama, you Peking, can you get them to do X, Y, Z? So how do you keep family away from interfering with your work, especially when there's always that external pressure? When they can't get you, they'll try to use family.
I am very lucky to have my parents who understand the kind of role we play. But they've also known me for years. They knew that when I was growing up, they knew where everything was heading. Yeah. They knew the personality I was. So my mom, for example, does not call me on work. And I've told her to leave social media. So when Adebayo and others are insulting, she does not hear. But it's a difficult situation. Sometimes it's tough for her, particularly when you have all these audios, threatening remarks, people are saying things. When we have these confrontations like the one we had in McKinney, and you see a line of gurus and all these things that the commissioner is going to be killed and things like that, and people having dreams all the time, people warning about food, about how you relate with women and things like that. It can be a little bit scary, but all we do is we are a family that believes in God, and of course we have always believed in that, and we continue to trust that this is a destiny that had to be fulfilled, and of course it was a good for Sierra Leone. Whatsoever happens, happens. Que sera, sera, they say.
Whatever will be, will be.
That's it.
I will let you go without asking this very final question. Okay. So, is there any particular thing that you have set your mind to say, after I'm done with the ACC, this is what I want to do? I know we're a little bit early asking that question, but I'm still going to ask.
I am a man who believes in what God puts before me. I leave my destiny to God, the author and finisher of our faith. Whatsoever he sets for me after the ACC is what I will pursue. But for now, the focus is to battle corruption like never before. And I'm glad that we are doing very well at it. And I'm happy that the people of Sierra Leone are supporting us, the government in Sierra Leone. And I will not end by thanking the president who put faith in me and appointed me to occupy this position and has given me the support and political will to be able to achieve it. Kudos, Mr. President, but thank you, the people of Sierra Leone.
And thank you so much for joining me here right on the spot. Thank you as well for being one of our sponsors and using On the Spot to, you know, basically communicate the message of anti-corruption. We are really humbled. We celebrate you 3 years on, you and your team, for their fantastic and amazing work that you have been doing. You know, like you often say, you can't please everyone. You will never get it right in this job. You can only do your best. So we join you in the celebration, and hopefully we'll be raising a glass to, you know, a very fruitful remaining 2 years.
I'll keep that bottle of wine. Thank you, Stella. You are an amazing interviewer. On the Spot is an absolute gem for Sierra Leone. We are pleased to be collaborating with you. And of course, we look forward to more collaborations as we continue on this journey.
Thank you
very much. Yes.
Coming up next are my final words. In my final words, there have been tremendous leaps in Sierra Leone's fight against corruption 3 years on, as more people become more conscious about the acts, costs, and impact of corruption. Although the Anti-Corruption Commission is the body mandated to fight corruption, it is, however, everyone's fight if we are to drastically minimize corruption. Corruption impacts not just the whole nation, but also generations unborn. A look around our society bears the effects of decades of corruption from failed institutions that have not effectively functioned or provided efficient and effective services to its people, onto poor healthcare facilities that have caused the avoidable death of many, such as babies dying in hospitals due to no light, or children working miles from their communities to the nearest underfunded community school, or the many communities struggling to access the very basics of amenities, such as good drinking water. The cost of corruption is very evident around us, and it is destroying the nation. In every act of corruption, there is a giver and a taker. Therefore, we must all take responsibility for the role we play in corruption. For example, illegal electricity and water connection, which deprives the government the revenue to provide sustainable electricity and water to the people, to the very common acts of paying and taking bribes. I congratulate the Commissioner and his team for their commendable achievements 3 years on, and wish them more wins as they continue this fight. We are happy to have them as our sponsor and to support in spreading the anti-corruption message. Thanks as well to our partner, the National Revenue Authority, NRA, for helping us bring to you this discussion. On the Spot, as always, we'll be back next week. But till then, stay fabulous.